Most writing teachers have students get in pairs or groups to share and respond to drafts of works in progress. This video is a brief overview of peer review, discussing some of the problems teachers encounter with it and suggesting some ways to address these problems. Peer review groups are an important part of teaching writing. They encourage students to see how their writing affects readers and to engage in the writing process as a series of drafts that build on one another. Nonetheless, if you've used peer review in your classes, you've probably encountered some of the following difficulties. Students may show uneven levels of commitment. Some groups do their best to make peer review work. Others may have a hard time staying on task. If you set aside a certain amount of time for peer review, say 30 minutes, some groups will finish in 10, while others will still not be finished after 30. Students are often uncomfortable with peer review. Often, students don't want to appear to criticize each other's writing. Some students are worried about being criticized. This often results in superficial comments like, "good job," or "I really liked it." In other cases, students don't feel that they know enough to respond to each other's writing. Students think that it's the teacher's job to tell them about their writing, and they don't feel prepared to comment on each other's work. When we ask students about peer review, this often comes up. Either they don't feel that they know enough to give good peer review comments, or else they don't think that their classmates know enough for them to respect the feedback that they get. Students also tend to focus on lower level concerns rather than the kind of global comments that might lead to revision. Because they don't feel confident about responding to each other, or because they simply don't know what to say, students tend to fall back on the kinds of comments that they've previously received from teachers. They use one-size-fits-all advice like, "be careful of spelling mistakes," or "use more examples." Even when we give students instructions or worksheets that ask them to respond to each other in a more open-ended way, we often find that students ignore these directions and default to this kind of vague teacher talk. English language learners or students from non-standard language communities may feel that they are particularly disadvantaged by peer review. They may feel like their native-speaking classmates know more than they do, or they may feel judged by these classmates. It's worth mentioning that moving peer review online may help with some of the logistical problems faced by writing teachers. It eliminates some of the time constraints faced by group work, and students, particularly non-native speakers, may find that it's more comfortable to respond online. It also allows you to quickly see what students are writing to each other. And finally, it means that there's a permanent space on the course website where students can go back and see what comments the reviewers have made. It may be useful to have students write their comments online and then come to class and discuss what they wrote, both with each other and with you. Nonetheless, moving peer review online won't solve all of the problems that I mentioned above. If you're frustrated by these problems, it may be helpful to stand back and think about the goals of peer review. Here are 3 ways of thinking about those goals. Peer review as teacher proxy. In this view, the goal of peer review is to make student writing better. And better usually means what we would give a better grade. This is a problematic goal, though. Students are often poor judges of what we think of as better writing. They know this, which is what often makes them so reluctant to give and receive peer reviews. It's also what makes peer review frustrating for teachers, when we hear students giving poor or superficial comments to their peers. It's true that we can retrain and redirect them towards what we value as teachers, but this takes a lot of class time and training, time that we might want to spend on other things. Peer review as givers gain. Here the goal of peer review is not to improve the writing of the person getting the comments. It's that seeing and commenting on a piece of writing helps the person giving the review. By seeing the way that other students are responding to the assignment and by thinking about how that writing works on them as a reader, peer reviewers are getting something that is likely to help their own writing. Peer review as going public. Regardless of the value of commenting, either for the giver or the receiver, the goal of peer review is for students to have an audience for their writing while it's still in progress. Writers need deadlines, and they need readers, regardless of what comments or advice they get from them. It may be helpful to reframe peer review for your students, to emphasize the goals of sharing writing with readers and seeing what other students in the class are doing, rather than as a way to give and get advice that will make their writing better. Furthermore, looking at peer review through this lens may help you as a writing teacher be a lot happier with it. Finally, the following website has some really useful thoughts, links, and resources relative to using peer review from a giver's gain perspective.